So today I am so grateful to be on the front porch of some dear friends and good neighbors of Alan and Pam Wilds. Keith and Amber Buchanan are some members at St. James United Methodist Church, fellow United Methodists, and were willing to meet with us today and have a conversation about race relations and how we can do better, what we need to know, what we need to hear, but most importantly, just front porch conversations that need to be happening all over the world, really, but most specifically in our community. So thank you, Amber and Keith, for letting me come and sit on your porch.
You're welcome.
So I was telling Keith earlier that I have a church member who asked me probably 3 or 4 months ago, hey, when are we going to talk about race relations in the church? Are we just doing that on Martin Luther King, or are we going to do that around year round? Gosh, she's so right. So immediately I began reading, and I read a book called I'm Still Here, and then started thinking about it, and then stopped and got busy and went on with chase some other rabbit. And I am mortified, but now I'm so grateful to say, yeah, it's time to talk about it. It's time to come and have a really good conversation for the sake of the church and for the sake of the kingdom. So thank you. So I'm curious just to know how are you? How has this week been?
It's been trying. It's a culmination of things. First we had the issue of the murder in Brunswick. Then we had, because there are cameras everywhere, they just pick up all these moments. Someone asked me, is racism getting worse? And I think Will Smith had a quote that said, racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed. And from there to the lady in Central Park that called the police on a guy that's a bird watcher and was asking her about a mass situation, and she called the police because he threatened her. Then literally days later, we had the Laurie murder. So not only that, but that's just the last several weeks. The coronavirus has an impact on the black community like no other.
Right. From
a contagion standpoint, as well as the fatality of it. And it's, so 2020 has been a year of challenges for everyone. But as a black man, it felt different. It felt a lot more where we are facing challenges that no one else is. Obviously, we see the Laurie video, first emotion is rage, to be frank. Because you think about, all right, that could be my uncle, or that could be me, or my son, or he was detained for, they thought he forged that $20 check, $20. Just think about, was that in his mind, was it worth that? Is my life worth more than that to people? Anyway, as a conversation and the protests and the people started vocalizing their feelings, a level of relief in a twisted way. I mean, it all happens because of a murder. So having a level of a sense of relief is ironic and surprising almost. But to see people put themselves to empathize with what someone is going through, they know they would never have to go through, but know as a community we shouldn't be upset about it, is a new emotion for me, and I'm only speaking for myself. And that brought some relief to me that there are hundreds of thousands of people who don't look like me that see it and get as mad as I do. That gives hope. But there's so much work we have to do.
I grew up around racism, but I think that we didn't talk about it as much. And now you go on social media and you see people who don't look like you. So, white people, people of other races. And a lot of people who frankly never spoke out against racism, they're speaking out now. And I think it's because they see that we're tired. They see that this isn't right. So I grew up around racism. I grew up around, all of that. Luckily, I was able to be in diverse schools and be around a diverse group of people. But at the end of the day, I would hope that my children wouldn't see half of the things that I saw, or, the things that my parents and my grandparents and my ancestors saw. And so, as much as everything that's going on right now is unfortunate, I think that the silver lining, if there is any silver lining in it, is that I don't think that he died in vain, because I think that a movement will come from this. A movement that, frankly, may not have happened, and so you look at downtown Alpharetta, I saw pictures of those young people protesting. Like, they get it. Mm-hmm. And frankly, they get it better than some of their parents and grandparents. And so, if a protester can change one person's mind, then it's not in vain.
Talking to your kids, how have your kids been, and how has your conversation been around the table with them?
So, I'll be honest, we have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and I try to remind them that, they're black, because frankly in this community they don't see a lot of black kids around them. And I think they're proud of it. They're proud of it. They talk about, they love Michelle Obama. They talk about Martin Luther King and, how he wanted everyone to be equal. But I just remind them that it doesn't matter what your friends look like. You treat them all the same. Mm-hmm. That's how it should be, and that's what God teaches. Mm-hmm. But I haven't had a conversation with my 5-year-old son yet. I mean, and that's tough. Yeah. But I think about, whenever I see these situations, I always wonder, when does he become not cute little Davis or handsome little Davis, but when does he become threatening? Like, at what age does that happen? Yeah. Like, to me, that's a black mother's biggest fear, is when does that change happen?
And it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, when we anticipate our children lose that innocence racially. Addison came home and she was upset because someone said her hair didn't look like the other girls at like 3 or 4. And how it's kinky. She's got beautiful hair, and it's not her beautiful curly hair, and it's not straight like the other girls. And she was upset about that. That's really the only time we really engaged with them coming home. But we know it's going to be a moment when they come home and they've had a revelation that they are not like other kids, and normally a conversation is taken with a negative tilt. Like, there's something they do that's not as good as the other kids, or something about them that's not as smart or not as worthy. And that's what every black parent of smaller kids goes through, is like they have that innocence that's beautiful, but we know that there's going to be a point where society brings that to a reality of them having to understand more about racial relations just through comments and other things they get from kids at school. Yeah. So that day is coming, and every black parent has to deal with it. Yeah. As well as, conversations about being looked at as being threatening or a suspect. I mean, that conversation with my son is coming. Mm-hmm. I mean, my voice will shake thinking about having a conversation with him. But it has to happen, and it will.
I think that's one of the stories that's being told too, that many white people don't get, is the just, maybe it's not overt, very covert way of your racism, of I'm in the elevator and I'm uncomfortable, or I'm not going to walk along here. We're oblivious, and I look at my church that is 99% white, and who are mad. I've been on 3 different conference calls. They're mad and they want to help and they want to be part of the solution.
So the conversations are the first way, and there's no way I can know how it is to walk in your shoes or anyone else's even Amber's. And there's no way for anyone to know how it is to walk in my shoes unless we talk about it and say, how is it to walk in your shoes? And have that engagement where there's enlightenment. There's a two-way street, and we're mutually enlightened of each other's experiences. And a lot of my experiences are shaped because I'm a black man. And I've never been anything else but a black man. Mm-hmm. So the melanin in my skin has completely shaped the world around me and my perspective. So those conversations, there's no way for you or anyone else that hasn't walked in my shoes to understand that unless we talk about it in a very honest and raw way.
Right.
And also, and I kind of hit on this, but we have to have zero tolerance with friends and family and church members and any notion that comes up of ideas and emotions and actions people have taken that we know are wrong. And we have to tell them when they do it and when they say it or use language that we know is not becoming. Right. But also we have to, faith without works is dead. So we have to have the faith that things are going to get better. We have to take those actions of confronting it and having those tough conversations whenever we can. But also taking action. The protests have always been helpful. Civil disobedience has a long history of affecting change. But after the signs are gone and people go home, at the end of the day, we're still going to go to work every day, and I'm still going to be as black as I was before we knew George Floyd.
My first thought automatically goes to parents, just because, again, I think about the children, and I think that's where you start. So, again, putting your children in situations where they can be around a diverse group of people. So I'll be honest, we live in a predominantly white community, and so we make an effort to put our kids around other black kids because if they only went to school, they wouldn't be around any. So, we go to a black church, and they're involved in, dance and the choir, and, they go to children's church. But we also make an effort to get them around a diverse group of people. So, like, obviously school and, Girl Scouts. And you have to start by making that effort. And frankly, it can be hard, especially in a community like this. Like, somebody may say, well, my kid only has one black kid in their class. Where should I go? And I think maybe, that's a part of the conversation. I think so often we get complacent on both sides. I mean, black people and white people. A lot of times you just want to be around the people who look like you.
Right.
And I think you have to step outside of your comfort zone to, again, understand how people are feeling and where people are coming from. And you cannot, and to your point, you cannot remain silent. If you hear your grandfather saying the N-word, like, you should say, hey, I know that you've been around for 80 years, but that's not right, And granted, you may not change your grandfather's mind, but at least if you can't speak up around your family, then, when will you be able to speak up? So I think you just have to start to speak up and, know that if you know within yourself that's, not the Christian way, then, just speak up about it.
It does not need to take another life to get us invested again.
Right.
And that's the promise that I want to make to myself. Like, don't do that again. Don't do it again.
As a society, we have a very short attention span. With anything, really. Like, news cycles move so fast.
We learned that with worship services.
Yes, absolutely.
This is boring.
And we have to be really, really conscious of making sure the page doesn't turn. That we continue to work really, really hard, extend hands and listen and talk and communicate, be candid with each other and have no tolerance and we keep our foot to the pedal. That's the only way we can have change.
It's going to take more than a day.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not one of those things that only takes a day.
Right.
Yeah, it's a thread that needs to be part of our gospel teaching, period. Not just once a month or during a special month, but it is the gospel. It's what Jesus is trying to get us to do, to see.
Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail is one of the most read letters in history. He was writing that letter to white clergymen who were silent, and who he felt like should be doing more. And with that context, reading it now, it hits differently. It hits differently because that's exactly what he was speaking about. It's folks who carry the mantle of Christianity and wave the flag until it's uncomfortable and may scare away some of their members.
Numbers may go down.
Right.
They won't like you.
Exactly. And that's almost the opposite of what Jesus did and how he conducted his life. He wasn't scared. He wasn't afraid of who he might scare away. He was wanting to bring in the masses and deliver a message and fulfill the scriptures, regardless of who was angered by it.
Right.
Well, I am so grateful. I hope that I can come sit on your porch again tomorrow. It's been so lovely. But I'm really grateful for your honesty and for your willingness to engage in this conversation for our benefit, because we were very selfish to ask you to do this, and so I'm very aware of that, and I'm also very grateful. So
Well, thank you.
Thank you.